Our vibe. Our tribe.
This is LADZ City Radio.
With Crypto Buffalo.
Let's get right into it, you guys. This is Steve. He is the co-founder of GrowYourBase and the host of the show HackCrypto, where you hack your crypto education with videos on YouTube. I got to tell you, man, it is good to see more people embracing the role of an educator and not just a shiller or somebody that's really just pumping their own bags. Let's get right down to the beginning of how this all started for you. What's your origin story in crypto, and where are you headed from there, man?
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Sure.
In terms of origin story, I majored in economics, and when I was going to a program in the Harvard iLab, I saw a sign that was the old meme of Bitcoin. That was the wizard that looked like it was drawn in a crayon that was stuck on a telephone pole that said "Stick it to the banks, buy Bitcoin," and this was in 2013.
Wow.
And I remember seeing the sign. I asked the guy that I was walking with, I was like, "Hey, what's this Bitcoin thing?" And he was like, "I don't know, some scam." and we started working out of the Cambridge Innovation Center, and I learned more about Dogecoin and just started really getting into the mix around 2014, and started a company with those same guys that we were playing ping pong for games that are now worth well over $20,000-$30,000 a game, which is kind of embarrassing. But looking back, it was about the adoption.
Yeah.
It was about the usage early on. But we started a peer-to-peer lending business. So it was very much focused around, helping individuals help each other. And they were loans to help students go through coding boot camps. So coding boot camp, if you guys aren't familiar, is like a school where you learn coding and get a job right out of the gate. So it's like a trade school for programmers. Very low risk profile. We would work with underwriters and underwrite the students. The investors were individuals that were very happy to support students getting employed and educated. And around this time was when I started creating some content, around 2015. And we sold that company to Max Levchin, the founder of PayPal, kind of the notorious CTO of the PayPal mafia, which was a pretty wild experience. And I was at Affirm, his company, for a little while, and the entire time talking to everybody there about crypto. And Max was into it, but kind of passively. And I always had the feeling that he was just a huge whale and didn't tell anybody at the company. And it was a non-crypto company. They just went public a little while ago. It's like another consumer finance company. So left there to start the company now, GrowYourBase, with my previous business partner, John Fields. And it's effectively like a community-driven fund for the Metaverse. So all of our members pay subscription fees and get access to NFTs and all sorts of exclusive events and things like that. We used to do it in Crypto Voxels, and now we are the second largest holder in Sandbox. So we're doing big events with Sandbox, and we're working directly with them to be the first and official meetup in Sandbox, which is very exciting to have that kind of exclusive feel with them, and really excited to kick that off this summer, and mainly just working on the community, building it out and educating people, like you said, on my YouTube channel, and really just trying to focus on not only the younger generation, but also the older generation.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people forget that boomers hold the vast majority of wealth and, trying to simplify all this stuff down and communicate to them is pretty important.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where like the YouTube channel background came from. That's where my traditional kind of nerdy finance background came from, and brings me to today here at LADZ City.
Yeah, on LADZ City Radio. What a journey, first of all, man, from 2013 to 2021. You've 8 years. It sounds like you've been in it the whole time. Were there any doubts? Were there any times where you kind of just didn't think this would work, or have you been just moving forward and emerging with this, and you have a strong core belief on this?
Yep. After Mt. Gox, I thought it was done. I thought the whole the whole cryptocurrency revolution was coming to an end. After that happened, I'm sure a few people here were around during that. It was like death in the streets. There was people on Twitter just constantly talking about how it was over, and it literally did feel like everything was collapsed and done. That was probably the only time where I really saw just capitulation across the board. Like everybody was done with it, and there was just such a thick layer of anger around the way that exchange worked, and just the hack in general, the guys that were running it, and it just was it was just a terrible a terrible time. It was like a desert. Startups weren't getting funding after that, and it was just this no man's land. So that was probably the closest to disbelief I got.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I got in 2017, and going back and watching a lot of documentaries about that time. I mean, for anyone who was holding anything in that exchange and just feeling helpless, right? I could definitely relate with that feeling, and just, man, yeah. So to be able to power through that and still stay determined to where you are now, man, and that's what's great about a lot of people that have really grown with this space, that are true believers, is they get the technology didn't change. It's just a lot of, human error, right? And a lot of things that were happening on that sense that, it doesn't change the technology behind it. It's just the belief, and then the kind of just wave of adoption struggles a little bit during that time. So it was one of those dark days during the timeline. But from 2013, I'll tell you, there's not a lot of people that I come across that have been in, from that early. I've heard from people that were mining a little bit and then they backed away, because they're like, oh, whatever, it's not worth anything, and so to truly evolve with this space is such a rarity these days, to come across somebody like yourself. I'm very excited to hear more about the sandbox, because LADZ City has a couple major plots connected to the big Atari plot. And we're in the process of getting the grant for the builders grant from the sandbox. And nobody truly knows when the sandbox is going to open. If you know, please share. We'd love to know. Do you have the process built? Do you have a lot of the assets created and you're just waiting for it to get whitelisted and open? Or where are you guys kind of at with the sandbox right now?
Yeah. And before I get into that, I wanted to just go back real quick to that time with Mt. Gox. Really, the people that survived were things like LADZ City here. Literally communities on Bitcoin Talk were the ones that survived. So you guys are taking the right approach. You're doing the right things. This is the type of actions that survive through the brutal bear markets. So I just wanted to touch on that first, because that's key. So everybody here, when there is a correction, which there will be, no matter what people tell you, there will be in the future, the communities are where to run to, where to talk to people and hang out with people and power through it. So love what you guys are doing with LADZ City, because this is what will survive.
Yeah,
but
appreciate
that. With Sandbox, we purchased quite a bit of land, as I mentioned, and similar to you guys. A lot of people really believe in the vision. They believe that the concept of play to earn in a metaverse that's extremely easy to build in, focusing on the builders, is the right approach. I think things like CryptoVoxels are fantastic. Decentraland's cool and great, but ultimately the tools for the builders is where I see the big gap being, and where Sandbox has really prevailed. I don't know if you've had a chance to play around with the game creator. Have you guys tinkered with that at all?
A little bit. We did a couple. Me and Q would kind of walk around in the plots. We have 3x3s that are just so massive, right? I mean, one single plot is pretty big, and to have a 3x3, we're like, oh my god! And we would go into that mode and kind of look at just one block compared to the character, and kind of visualize what LADZ City would look like in that. And then we've also there's a couple of demos that you can have up to 32 people in, and we've done a LADZ City Radio in there and had people running around doing little races on the streets. But really in the last couple of months, we've kind of backed away from it, because we knew it just keeps kind of, all they're doing is selling more land and nothing's really happening yet. But this process now, we feel like it's starting to get up to that point where it's getting close. And so it's time for us to really start building and getting ready for that.
everybody I talk to that has land and that's building in it, everybody's really trying to maintain that high quality and, focusing on it being a great experience. I think that's such a good thing that Sebastian and their team there have focused on, is just really setting the bar high. And I know you guys are following them closely, like you said, but some of these builds are just incredible. The videos that have been coming out of some of these builders building like these skyscraper style things are just amazing. So I really like that high quality that they're going for. And I think you said that you guys were applying for a grant, which is awesome. They're doing this like studio, game studio development funding style program, where people that are going to develop games and build in the sandbox are getting like funding and also a bunch of resources from them to really help nurture the community. So in terms of what we've done, we're very focused on the social hub that's going to launch, I think, in late August. So that's like the only date that I even remotely know, which is the later end of August, is when we're gearing up for that to release into the social hubs, where people can all come together communally and kind of start to have some experiences and some little bit more detail and things like that. And I respect that they've delayed it. Obviously, the community's been frustrated with them for a while, not releasing things, but I do respect that that threshold for quality is just, they've just put that as their top priority, where they don't want anybody to come in and have a bad experience. And if that means making everybody frustrated by delaying, that's cool in my book. And just for a couple more months, I think. But yeah, focusing on the social hubs, I know of easily 2 or 3 other communities that are going to be really trying to run in and just experience it. So yeah, I'm sure we're all going to be there together, going in there and playing around.
I can't wait. I think that's the thing, right? We got to have that patience, because, all good things, you got to wait, and, it's worth it. And, they want to do it right the first time, because there's no, second chance on a first opinion on people coming in here. What's your team like? How many builders do you have? I mean, we're in the process right now. Next Wednesday, we have a great meeting, our first like town hall type of meeting with our foreman, Small Town Cowboy, out of Scotland, who has created our first LADZ City in the Uplift world, which I saw you just did an interview with them and Corey. And so we have our first LADZ City built there in that Minecraft server. And now we're moving to Crypto Voxels and the Sandbox. And so next Wednesday, we're bringing in the opportunity for all the lads and anybody else in the space to come on in and join the LADZ Metaverse Builders group, because we know this is a massive project. How is that like for you guys? Like, do you have a huge team? Do you work in like a small amount, or do you outsource, or what's that process for you guys?
We are currently a team of 10, and we have a group of 4 builders that we have brought on, and they are both a mixture of architects. One is a very popular architect company that I'm not going to mention right now, but they're very popular in Crypto Voxels. I'm sure you guys can piece together who that is. But there's one guy on our team that we just brought on who has like 20 years of experience in building out games. And his name is Jonathan Cooperson. Super excited to have just brought him on. So he's going to really help just architect out a lot of these games and experiences that we're going to try to provide to all the communities. I think that the magic of Sandbox and just the metaverse in general is that it's like this convergence of everyone. Everybody gets to come together from all the different directions. Doesn't matter which community you came from, where you're based, what your age is, or anything. It's just this free-ranging environment and universe that's just a really exciting future. So I am very eager for Sandbox just because I'm ready to see that quality. But ultimately, we're trying to make sure that our experience is good, just like you guys are trying to make sure of it, and all the other communities that are really trying to do it right. But one side note here is that I do think with the IPs that have come on board with your Walking Dead, your Atari, these huge brands, I think that that's something that's often underrepresented, that how hard that is to do to get people to believe in something and leverage their hard work and their IP is a pretty big, that's like climbing a mountain and moving mountains to do that. So that was one of the initial draws that I had to Sandbox, was just the level of IP that they've partnered with. And I know that's what you guys probably were attracted to and what brought LADZ City there. But it's just so impressive that all those brands have partnered with them. And there's a lot of really intricate things that they're doing behind the scenes that I'm ready for them to do this consistently rolling out news once the social hubs are out.
I can't wait, and it's definitely the next wave for us with LADZ City. Especially being a city and designing the experience to not only just be in this Discord, but be in this virtual experience where we can express ourselves as avatars, really get to connect with a lot of users, not just through a username and their thumbnail, but they're actually full expression in a 3D world. And then you've got the virtual reality, and you have like Somium Space and a lot of other metaverses coming around the corner. I love it, man. How I found out about LADZ City was I bought, a little parcel on the Atari, right next to the Atari, for 10 Ethereum back in the day. And I just looked at my neighbors and I saw Crypto Stash, and then I looked across the way and saw Layer 1 Podcast, which had NFT Live, and the rest is, as you would say, history. It's been an amazing ride on this journey, but it's also been one where I'm just so excited, man. I'm like, let's go, let's do this. But right, you gotta be patient with it. It is a process, and when it does open up, hopefully this year, man, we can get to go and check out what you guys have going on and do collaboration events, just like what's happening in Crypto Voxels right now in Decentraland. And that's what I just love about this space is there's so many ways to express and grow and connect, and metaverses are really supporting that next wave of just adoption and also just displaying what your whole message is, right, in the ways of artists and gamers and education, which really wants to bring me back with what we're doing here on LADZ. We do a lot of coverage of news and a lot of coverage of sales and certain things like that. We really don't do a lot of tutorials yet. We don't really cover. Sometimes too much lingo over the top, where it's like if someone's brand new who came in the last couple months, might be almost turned away because we're just rambling on a lot about stuff, expecting everybody in the audience to know. And everyone in this audience is at a different level of when they came in and how much information they have about the overall concept of blockchain and NFTs and DeFi. And where do you recommend people start, and how do you work with somebody who's younger and somebody who's older? Like, what's your process right now?
Yeah, great question. I think there is an element of tribalism in the space, and there always has been, and it's almost like a requirement to bring newcomers in. Where especially if you're financially inclined, you have a bag and something, you're gonna want to tell people about it. And there's been a lot of, I could say, good tribalism, and also very, very bad tribalism that I would consider gatekeeping. And that can often happen just from soured good tribalism. So people just, maybe get rug pulled a couple times or something like that on some coins that they're trying to make it big on. And I think that there's just a lot of gatekeeping that will always be there. So in terms of like the most non-bias ways that you can approach tutorials, I honestly send people to Coinbase. Their educational material has always been the gold standard where I've sent older people. My parents, I sent there originally in 2015 or so, and other people's parents that introduced me to their parents to talk to them about like how everything worked. Back in 2016, sent them a lot of materials that Coinbase had put together. And I think that they're kind of the OGs in terms of education. They acquired Earn once upon a time, and that was a fantastic move on their part, paying people to learn about these different assets. So I'd like to send people there, and a lot of people from YouTube, will DM me and ask about individual coins. And I usually always just recommend that they watch high-level tutorials on something like a Coinbase, and then once they get comfortable with self-custody, then they go to Exodus or MetaMask or one of these kind of next level platforms where you can withdraw and hold your keys, because I think that's one of the big jumps that we will always struggle with as a space. Maybe not always. Maybe somebody will come up with a very slick way of doing it, but right now, I mean, that level of drop off, I think MetaMask, something like 70% of people drop off, some crazy figure between that stage of, okay, I have to do these keys, I have to hold on to these, and this is full custody. I'm responsible. That part is where there's this huge delta of lack of information. So, I've tried to do my best in terms of educating people. I know you mentioned Stash earlier. Me and Stash go way back, and a lot of his tutorials are pretty great in terms of like minting NFTs and a lot of NFT content out there.
Yeah.
But I don't know if people dislike Coinbase at this stage, but ultimately they were early on with creating great education, and I still think that they're doing it. So I like to send brand new people. Like, I'm not talking about people that have been around, and they have a whole wallet full of like Meebits and Bored Apes. I'm talking about like the people that are coming home from their job, getting ready to retire or something. They're like, what's this? What's this digital currency? And then you send them a Coinbase link, and they just have so much valuable information there. And that's like the jump off point that I like to send people to.
I'm jealous, man. The fact you got your mom and dad, learning about it. My dad last year, I was telling him about, just some successes I've had in this space and how I'm moving more into it. And he's just like, it's not backed by anything like the dollar is. I'm like, Dad, the dollar hasn't been backed by anything since before Nixon was president. And I'm just like, come on, man. Like, how do you not know these things, man? No, I don't talk to my dad like that. But, it's just one of those things where, just having, father figures, thinks they know it. And they're kind of scared of change. And, a lot of my family's kind of like that. Love them to death. But when I talk about crypto, they think I'm talking about a pyramid scheme or monopoly money or some shit. So it's tough, man. It really is. So good on you for being able to have, parents that are able to, embrace the new kind of evolution of money as we're seeing it right now. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, all the friends that I reached out to when I first kind of dove into it, they've all reached back out multiple times, 2017. And then they started reaching out at the beginning of this year, similar friends group from like college and before college. And that's just kind of how the ebb and flow of this type of adoption happens. So, I mean, everybody here is going to have friends reaching out to them in 5 years, 10 years, asking questions, and it feels good. It feels good when people can really truly gain something from listening to you, like gaining value from listening to something that you say. And that was a lot of the baseline that I wanted to start with YouTube, and great communities like this, and Token Smart, and a lot of the great companies or communities out there. I think that everybody here talking to each other, sharing ideas. This doesn't really happen in a lot of industries.
Right.
It's very important to know that. Like, it doesn't happen where companies collaborate across the board every day. Everybody's collaborating with each other. There's just something magical about that, because we all know that everyone wins, all boats rise by collaboration. So it's just such a unique approach. There's no better space, and I think everything else is quite boring at this stage.
It really is. I'm all in, man. I've been 3 weeks now of all in, and before that I was a cameraman for sports, and when COVID hit, everything shut down. I started directing for Microsoft on a lot of their conferences they did in the cloud, and learned this program called vMix, and then I started working in crypto, and now I absolutely love it, where every day I'm able to have conversations with people. I mean, the hardest part is stepping away from the computer and going to walk my dog, and just like not diving deeper in the rabbit hole of potential right now, because it's endless. There's so much we can all do together, and sometimes I have to catch myself and just in pace and just enjoy the ride and where we're at in each phase of developing LADZ City, along with just developing the knowledge of where we're headed. Do you have any recommendations for people right now on things that are coming besides the metaverse? We all know that's going to be big. For people, do you feel like there's something else coming around the corner right now in the broad spectrum of blockchain and NFTs and everything? Is there anything what's really getting you excited right now?
Pretty good question.
It's a hard one to answer, I know. Those are the questions I like to ask here on LADZ City Radio.
There is a little bit of, it can be inundating when you're on Twitter and on Discord and things like that, just with the amount of projects. There's just so many talented people coming into this space every day and releasing new projects. I think one subject that a lot of people haven't really talked about, and some people do really talk about it, like NFT 42 is doing an incredible job. I was just messaging with Jimmy earlier today, and we talked in New York last year a lot about the metadata and storage on chain. And there's this spectrum of storage that exists with NFTs. And by NFTs, I'm basically referring to the new functionality of crypto wallets. Like traditionally, all wallets were about money and moving money around, and then NFTs really popped, and people said, "Oh wow, my wallet can be used for all these different things now. In addition to money, it has all this new functionality with these NFTs." And the idea around that shift that's taken place really needs to be addressed about where this stuff is being stored. And I think that if you ever wanted to pass down a punk that you bought last year, whenever you bought your CryptoPunk, if you ever wanted to pass it down to someone, that is stored on chain, and it's permanent. And I think projects like Arweave are doing an incredible job building the perma web, I think is what their word is. So I'm really bullish on projects like that. Nameless, the NFT 42 project, super bullish on that. I think that the people that are focusing on the storage of, well beyond NFTs, but right now focusing on storing media on chain is just such an important aspect here, because everybody's using different things. They're using IPFS and all these different types of storage methods in addition to the chain, whereas the future should be it's being stored on chain, which can be expensive, but things like Arweave are using a fund that has been created, and I think there was like 500,000 in ETH that supports it, which is pretty exciting to see projects like that. And I think that is like the start of something that it's very hard to visualize right now what that's going to become. But that's what I'm looking at. I'm very, very focused on storage, and I think that is a very unspoken problem, in that images are great, and some maybe utility pieces like VFriends that came out. I think that was great. That's on chain, which is very exciting to see. On the spectrum, it's pretty close to fully on there, I think. So I think that's this underlying beast that I've been paying attention to, like Arweave. But beyond that, I'm just super excited for ETH and have been talking about it for quite some time. But everything they're doing with the transactions burning ETH to make it deflationary, I think is brilliant. I think that's absolutely brilliant. Like constricting supply and just my econ nerd brain goes nuts when I see things like that.
Yep.
Reducing gas fees and everything through burning is just very smart. So that was a long-winded answer to your question, but yeah, looking at various different things, all pretty much focused on ETH for the most part.
So real quick before I let you go, and by the way, I could talk to you for hours. So we have a couple guests on the way here lined up, so we're definitely going to have to start to wrap it up. Where do you see it? Did we hit top this year? Do you feel like the market is going to probably come back in the fall? We could flip a coin. It's 50-50 in that sense of up or down. But where's your vibe? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I don't think we're close to a top. Not even close. I think that the same sentiment happened in early 2017, probably February, March of 2017. People were, when it hit 1,000, or when Bitcoin hit 1,000, people were all panicked, saying that it was absolutely topping out, and I think it climbed up to 3,000 over a few months there, and it was very similar sentiments. So I'm definitely familiar with how people react to this type of thing, and everybody's posting all these charts. And if anybody listening to this is new to the space, it's very important to just turn off Twitter and go for a walk from time to time when you see all these people arguing and posting charts of ideas. Nobody knows what's going to happen. No one knows what's going to happen, other than it's going to go up way higher than you ever could have anticipated. It will go higher, and then it will go down harder and faster than you ever could have anticipated. Yep. Right. But that's the beauty of it, is that no one truly knows, and if anybody says they're an expert, they can't be. So it's like a very young space. So be wary of people who say this is exactly what's going to happen. I'm an expert. Listen to me. Be very wary of that.
Yeah.
For sure.
For sure, indeed. Well said, my man. Hey, thank you so much for coming on LADZ City Radio. Like I said, we could chat for hours. Anything else you want to say before we let you go?
Love what you're doing here. As I said before, these are the places where you want to hang out during ups and downs in these markets. So keep it up with what you guys are doing. This is what keeps the space moving.
To hear more about LADZ City Radio and our special guests, just type LADZ.city on your browser. LADZ City Radio.
Our vibe, our tribe.